Rite of Passage, the podcast with Giabra Martin.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the show. We are here with author Dan Klefstad. How are you, Dan?
Hey, I'm doing great, Greg. I appreciate the invite to be on your
Yeah.
show.
No, absolutely. We met over the weekend it was actually my first book event.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you
Well,
gave
I
a
don't believe
wonderful.
that at all. Really? You've been around
No,
for a while, haven't you?
I've been around for a little while. I've been just kind of working like the whole social media thing. And it was actually profound at the event because most of the authors that I met with, they're
Mhm.
not really that big on social media. I was trying to like figure out like, oh, where can I connect with you? And they're like, well, I kind of have a Facebook. But meanwhile, all the authors I know them more like digitally. They're all over the country, and we mostly on TikTok, sometimes Instagram, kind of get together and like share insights about marketing and what's working. We're all going this social media route, but
Mhm.
there's all these other avenues and it's kind of this thing. There's this book, Good to Great, which is like the premise is that things that are good are the greatest enemy to things being great because you get complacent. You're like, oh, it's kind of working, so I'm going to keep running the same play. And you maybe, if you didn't know anything else, you might explore other avenues, right? So a lot of us have not been exploring other avenues, and that's where you came in. And I found your presentation to be very profound.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So just a
Yeah.
little backstory. So Dan is a fiction author and also he helps authors. So he's got, and I was just on Amazon. So I know about two of your books, but it looks like you potentially have a couple more. Yeah. Dr. Shabazz, is that yours?
No, yeah, that's not a very good one, but this Fiona's Guardians right here is my best novel, best work of fiction. That's a hardcover. And then the lessons from the campaign for that book it led in part to DIY book promo, how to find readers without spending money.
I love it. So I was hyping up my author friends. I was like, I'm having this guy Dan on the podcast and he has this whole book. So I know they're going to be excited about that. So before we get into that, I do want to talk about Fiona's Guardians. So
Mhm.
you are currently working on a sequel.
I'm about 50,000 words into the sequel. I'm entering the home stretch, I think. Yeah. So if I get the book done by May and get it to my publisher, it could be out in October. So the pressure of a deadline sometimes helps, as we know.
Love that. Yeah, no, it keeps us on track, right? It's easy to drag your feet, especially in the creative realm, and not be quite as disciplined.
Yeah.
So your publisher moves pretty fast. I mean, they might have it out by October. It might be 6 months or less from when they receive it to.
Exactly. I say they. It's one guy, I think, Burton Mayer's books. He's
Okay.
based in Scotland,
Nice.
and yeah. I kind of found him on Twitter. And then, I was looking for publishers of Gothic horror back when Twitter was called Twitter,
Right.
and I found Burton Mayers, and we just have struck up a good relationship. And I sent him my manuscript, and he liked it, and so he put it out. So this is
Wonderful.
back in 2020. It came out in paperback first, and then in hardcover a few years later.
Well, you were talking about at the event. It looks like a good one. You want to give like the elevator pitch, and I think your elevators. That's one of these things authors need to work on. You've got this down to a science. You got the radio voice, so like let's do the elevator pitch.
You start with the wine pour pitch,
Hey.
or the coffee pitch. The log line is: when a vampire seduces you, death is minutes away. When she hires you, you'll soon wish you were dead. And so it is about a vampire, a 250-year-old vampire. We're now entering the elevator pitch. 250-year-old vampire named Fiona, who she needs 10 pints of human blood every night to survive. And she'd rather not have murder police showing up at her door during the daytime when she's asleep. So she hires humans to arrange for her blood supply. And her most recent guardian, that's what they are, the guardians of Fiona's Guardians. Her most recent guardian, Daniel, has built up a network of people who work inside hospitals who steal a little bit of blood, not enough to be noticed, and then he buys it from them. It's to keep it a business relationship, and then he brings the blood to her. I mentioned she needs 10 pints of human blood a night to survive. She prefers O negative.
I was going to ask
So,
if she has a preference. She wants the good stuff, the rare stuff.
right, exactly.
Yeah. I love that. Just really quick, I just thought of this. So I learned like just the other day, my grandfather was O negative. He used to race cars.
Hmm.
And there were days where he was not allowed to race because they had to have a certain amount of like blood supply for the race car drivers. And they
Yeah.
couldn't always get the O negative, the universal donors. There was days he had to sit it out and just, put his head down. And I was like, God, so that O negative, that's what she wants. That's the expensive, that's the rare stuff. That's the very, yeah, that's the good stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah. For whatever reason, it's an aesthetic choice. Some of the other vampires in my book prefer, A or O positive or whatever, but
Right. Well,
yeah.
let me ask you, in the universe of your book, is vampires existing commonly understood, or is it like they're kind of like a myth in the, as far as the people, society goes?
Right. I mean, people. Oh, yeah. Your average person will be aware of the myths about vampires,
Okay.
but my vampires tend to want to stay undercover. They find that's the best way to survive, and the humans do the work outside of the house or the lair, if you will.
Right.
And
So really
so
set in our world, not like True Blood or like, oh, vampires are known and understood. They're secret in the shadows and people have been kind of whispering about them for centuries, but no one knows for sure.
And I tried to keep the world the world of my novel relatable to the average reader who is going to come to this maybe not knowing a whole lot about vampires,
Mm.
but or the vampire myths, but will find it an enjoyable story because I've had reviewers say this reads more like a spy thriller in many ways than it does
Interesting.
a gothic horror. And I actually thought that was a really cool compliment because I love spy novels. I grew up on spy novels,
Right.
and this has a little bit of that aspect to it. There is an antagonist in this book as well, and that is the vampire hunters. Really, I guess you could say a Vatican hit squad called
Like Van
Mors.
Helsing and
Yeah, yeah. Mors Strigae, or Death to Vampires, is the Latin,
love it.
and yeah, and so they hunt vampires and the humans who serve them. And that's so they announce their presence in the book by killing Fiona's sire.
Oh, I love it. Hey, did you ever see, just by the way, because I rewatched this the other day and I forgot. Like it was when I was a kid, it was really funny and it's still really funny. With Leslie Nielsen and Mel Brooks, it was like Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he's like, oh,
Yeah.
now she's dead. He's like, no, she's alive. He's like, she is Nosferatu. He's like, she's Italian. That would just like sometimes I hear
Yeah.
that like as I'm falling asleep. I'm like, she's Italian, and somehow this Nosferatu thing. I don't know if there was a movie that came out recently. That's just been like I've been hearing that everywhere now. So
I saw it. I saw the
yeah,
latest Nosferatu. I've seen three Nosferatus, and I would say Robert Eggers' film is right up there with the other two. I mean, it's a very good film.
well, when people are talking about vampires right now, it feels like a great time to release the sequel. I mean, it's like it's people are whispering about it. There's movies coming out. Like it's back in kind of the public consciousness, right?
I think also at the same time, the series "What We Do in the Shadows," a vampire parody comedy, has
Yeah.
just ended. It's a six-season run, I think, or something like that. So
Okay.
we have the comedic angle that's still very fresh in people's memories, and
Right.
also a true gothic horror, and I mean a horror story, Nosferatu that came out just a few months ago, and it's an excellent film.
I'll have to watch that for sure. Hey, so let
Mhm.
me ask you. So Fiona with her guardians, does she, in terms of how she's got them kind of like under her thumb, is it coercion? Is it financial? Are they under like hypnotized?
I think she looks for people who are a bit lost when they're young, lost, maybe not doing well in school, and are looking for a quick buck because she
Mm,
pays very well. It's a big responsibility keeping her alive,
right.
basically.
But you
And
basically
also
sell your soul kind of thing. And yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit like that. Obviously, she's vulnerable during the daytime when she's asleep, so they're also protectors, sort of the
Mm,
guard dogs, if you will,
right.
of the house when she's asleep. But there's also an allure and a magnetism about her. She's a very stunning, brunette, and she has. A gorgeous kind of voice, and I think the people who work for her are also kind of in love with her a little bit, or
Mm,
more than a little bit.
right.
Yeah, but she does keep the relationship professional. There's no, messing around with her
Right.
subordinates, but there's definitely that allure that keeps them in her orbit.
It's got that femme fatale thing going on.
Hmm. Yeah.
Where did this story idea come from? I know that's a hard question for authors because sometimes we're like in the shower, we dream
Mhm.
something, like we have no idea where our stories come from a lot of times. But if you do know,
Yeah, yeah. I dreamed her up. I dreamed up
There you go.
Fiona. I dreamed up Daniel, her main guardian. And I didn't sort of just committed to a novel early. It actually started as a short story
Interesting.
that got published in the literary journal Crack the Spine. So back in February of 2017. And this is the story that introduced Fiona and Daniel to the world. And that story actually modified, became three early chapters in the novel Fiona's Guardians. And so that's kind of the path to how that came to be. And then I took that story and sent it out to some book bloggers, these sort of amateur reviewers that I like to talk to and interact with, and they sometimes review short stories, and in addition to novels and memoirs, and several of them raved about the story, which was called The Caretaker back then.
Ooh.
And so they encouraged me to write another short story about these two, and then another, and then another. And so by the time I had a dozen short stories, I began to stitch them into a novel.
Right. You're like, I
And
got a whole book here in terms of like page count, word count, right?
pretty much, pretty much.
Yeah.
I added many more chapters, of course, after that. My publisher suggested I introduce a new character, that kind of thing, and we got, eventually we got the book out. But yeah, it started as a short story, and I guess I just dreamed up these two people. I've always wondered, as someone who's watched a lot of vampire content and read, a lot of vampire
Right.
books, I often thought, what would it be like to work for a vampire, and not in a Dracula Renfield kind of way, which is
Right.
obviously a very abusive relationship.
Yeah.
But you're living with someone who could kill you, but also who needs your help. And the human character depends on her for protection, although
Right.
he's there to protect her during the daytime. So it is a symbiotic relationship. And I began playing around with that idea of employment, and keeping it like a real proper, business kind of relationship. And I was working full time at the time that the book came out. I recently retired, and the book felt like work. It felt like just something that everybody. To me, it seemed like something that a lot of people would gravitate to because they could relate to it. It's having a job,
Right.
although a different kind of job, I
A little
guess.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. I mean, I love the idea. I love the premise. What got you into writing? Because like you originally like radio is kind of where you like carved out your career, correct?
Yes, I spent 30 years working for an NPR station in Northern Illinois called WNIJ.
Oh,
And I had an author interview program there for a while too.
nice.
But I got into writing, believe it or not, I wrote a spy novel when I was 16. And it was 200 pages of manuscript, typed, double spaced, whatever. And it was terrible.
We've all got one like that. Like, oh,
Yeah,
throw that shit
yeah.
out.
But my mother read it, and she this is back in the 1980s, and she said, this isn't bad. The endings make it a little need a little work, and that love scene, you might want to think about that again, and stuff like that. But yeah, the book itself was terrible. The manuscript has since been lost. I have no idea where it is. It probably got
Right.
chucked, during one of those moves, whatever.
Yeah.
But I kept writing through college, and in radio. Actually, much of what I said on the radio was written. I worked over and over and over on scripts for whether it was news scripts or promo scripts or that kind
Right.
of thing. And so I learned to write tight, as we say in the business.
Yeah.
When you're
Yeah.
writing
Yeah.
for the ear, especially, you don't want to have any excess words. You want to just keep it as lean as possible.
Yeah.
And this is actually what Hemingway did, Ernest Hemingway, when he was writing column inches in for newspapers.
Huh.
You also have to write tight. So I think the world of journalism offers some interesting an interesting path to those who want to go and learn to write literature or fiction.
Yeah. No, that's actually a great idea, especially like, I mean, it's all kind of okay. So here's something I've gotten wrong is like, okay, I write my books and then I go to make the audiobook. And because I didn't, when I was editing, I didn't read it out loud. There's some things that read very well, but are not spoken very well. And I
Mhm.
imagine like that whole journalism piece, like, okay, we get better with the dialogue, no extra words. We get in, get out, and everything needs to be as clear as possible. Like some authors try to find the fanciest word they can. I'm more of the like make your work as clear as possible. Make it, like it could not be misunderstood.
Yeah, there's a line there, but if you're constantly sending someone to a dictionary
Right.
or thesaurus or whatever, that means you're taking them out of your story. And that's something I really don't want to do, except occasionally, if the word really means something important to the story or says something about a character,
Right.
then of course I'll use one of those, $10 words or whatever.
Right, right. And you might set them on a journey of discovery. Like that they take the time to look it up. They're like, wow, there's kind of a interesting what is the word? Etymology, etiology?
Yeah,
No, one is
etymology.
bugs and one
Yeah,
is words.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. You're right.
No, like Nosferatu be one. Like I had to look it up and I was like, oh, like this, yeah, Italian and Latin and all this stuff. Um, it's a brilliant idea. So then, yeah, you started writing short stories, you found some people. So you found the publisher before the book was actually even completed.
I mean, I had a manuscript that I thought was completed, sent it to the publisher, and then he came back and said, "I think you need another character here. You need to do something a little bit with this scene. Try this, try that." And I said, "Okay, yeah, this made sense." And then so there was revision. The last layer or two of revisions came after I had signed the contract with the publisher.
I love it. I feel like a good copy editor is indispensable, right? Like there's so many things like individually you'll miss or they make sense to your brain, but to someone else, they're like, oh, that, yeah, I couldn't quite, put the puzzle together the way you did kind of thing. And
But yeah, you're right. Copy editor, and I guess I know a few editors, and they talk about several layers of editing, from developmental edit all the way to proofreading, etc.,
right.
continuity, blah blah blah. A really good edit is essential. I think if you want a
Yeah.
book that you're going to be 100% proud of and want to promote the heck out of, you have to have a good edit.
Yeah, and readers will pick you apart for certain things like grammatical issues, or if they think something is like historically inaccurate. And I wish I got a bad review the other day because I referenced a vacuum cleaner during World War II, and this reader was like, they didn't have those, and I'm like, no, that's not. But I can't argue with someone on their Amazon review. But they're like,
Sure. Yeah,
I got,
yeah.
but so like even just someone to be like, okay, are these details correct, or like something you reference later in the story, timelines, all these different things. Like you need that second set of eyes, and I highly recommend.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna have to check out Fiona's Guardians because that sounds like the kind of thing I would very much enjoy. And I'm excited your new book sequel is coming out. We'll see how the story plays out here. Do you think there's going to be a one after that, or just you kind of put a bow on it after?
Well, three is a magic number, isn't it? I mean,
It is.
people like things in threes. So, is a series with just two books? A series
No,
is a series when you have three.
gotta
Yeah.
be three.
Yeah. So I feel compelled to do it, but I compose slowly. So, I mean, I've been working on the sequel now for 5 years. So we're looking at so the other one was, if I do a third book, that's probably a decade away. Because when it comes to fiction, I don't pump them out. I mean, I
Yeah.
really want to try to make a lasting statement. For my audience. And now, if I were a romance author, I would have maybe 6 months before the next book should come out. I mean, it's a completely different audience with completely different expectations. You do not want to make that audience wait for the next book in a series.
Right.
Um, but I figure with mine, I aspired to do something, I guess a bit of literary horror, and so it does take me time to do that.
Yeah, and good things take time. And I understand what you mean. Like my grandma had so many shelves of like mystery novels, like,
Mm.
and I think she read each one time and then like you don't need it a second time, right? You're like, oh, I've been there, done that. But really, really profound, like literary kind of fiction. I mean, it's got layers to it. And like if you revisit it, you find different things at different points in your life.
And that's what I hope for my
Right.
readers. I hope they'll go back to Fiona's Guardians, in a year or two, and discover a few new things that they didn't see on the first pass.
Right. Or understand the characters at a deeper level or something like this. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's wonderful. I'm excited about that. I know so about half my audience are author friends of mine, and I've been hyping you up about the DIY book promo. So I do want to get into that. I will
Mhm.
say just the Zoom, I do like the free one still. It's like 40 minutes. So usually at the end we get cut off in like a very fast, kind of abrupt way. In the description, I will put all of Dan's links. books, ways you can find him, reach out to him. So that'll all be there. So if we do get booted at the end, just wanted to put that on the record here. So let's get into DIY book promo. So what
Mhm.
inspired this book?
So I realized that I needed to get better at promotion. I actually got dumped by a publisher in 2018, right around there.
Okay.
Yeah, some small publisher in Texas, because I wasn't selling enough books, but also they felt that I wasn't doing enough to promote the book that I was in earlier work.
Right.
And I found it also hard to market that particular book. I don't want to get too much into the bogged down in the details there,
Yeah.
but it didn't fit on neatly in a genre, and so that's why I wrote a vampire novel, because I wanted something that go into a nice genre. There's a space for it at the bookshelf, at the
Right.
bookstore.
There's a section. Yeah. We can
Yeah,
say what it is, even though it is also a mystery spy novel. It's
right. Yeah, a little bit like that. Yeah.
right.
But so anyway, the experience of getting dumped by a publisher, but then having and taking all the lessons from that and really going out to promote Fiona's Guardians,
Yeah.
I had a campaign that lasted something like 3 years or more, where I was really, going out there and promoting the book and achieving some successes. I got Fiona's Guardians adapted by a professional theater company for
Nice.
their podcast. It's called Fiona's Guardians, Mysterious Journey, the Mysterious Journey podcast. You'll find it in there. So that was one of the big successes that I've had with that story. I've been talking with a screenwriter director about, maybe turning it into a short film. All of these experiences that I'm just, sort of rattling off at you went into DIY book promo, how to find
Right.
readers without spending money, which is based largely on the campaign for Fiona's Guardians. All the lessons I've learned. And I'll give you just a short list of the things that I learned from that campaign.
Sure.
One, you have to have a really good review from what I would call a respectable source. And my source was the Chicago Writers Association's Windy City Reviews publication. And I got a fantastic review from them for Fiona's Guardians. And that taught me something very important, that this review is something I need to share with everybody I contact my book, about my book. So, this is, you can't, especially if you're going to go to independent booksellers, it's probably not a good idea to say, hey, look at all these Amazon reviews that I've got.
Right. Right.
Because Amazon is basically their enemy in many ways. So,
Yeah.
so to have a review from a blogger or from the Windy City Reviews is an alternate way to get their attention. And if they read the review, chances are, and it's a great review, chances are they're going to say, I think I want that on my bookshelves here in my store. And of course, I also shared that review with the organizers of book festivals and author conventions, that kind of thing. And then it made it really easy also to get media interviews, podcasts, newspapers, TV, etc., radio, because again, a really good review. So I
Right.
place a really high priority on attaining that. And then once you get that great review, you can co-brand with indie bookstores, which are more likely to invite local regional authors to events in their store, or
Yeah.
even to have their book on their shelf. So that's part of what I teach. But also, because of my radio experience, I can also teach how to pitch media outlets for interviews and how to perform well in front of the mic. And I spend a lot about that in this book as well.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, there's a whole lot to unpack in that, and we're gonna have to come back on the show. And we should both wear fedoras too. You got the fedora in your yeah, like we'll come on, we'll do the fedoras. Maybe I'll do
Yeah,
like oh god, what the hell? Oh, I can't come up with the guy's name. The anyway, we'll move on. Crazy author or the wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
yeah. Hunter Thompson.
Hunter S. Thompson. Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
We'll do the whole thing. There's a lot to unpack in there. So do you go for so obviously it's a reputable neutral review, like not someone you paid a lot of money for. Like we won't pick on a certain organization that whose name starts with a K and ends with Urcus. Um,
Yeah, it's
and
very good.
your Amazon reviewers who like who knows who they are and what they know, but like finding a very reputable critical reviewer who isn't gonna just not try to hurt your feelings because for good humanity's sake, right?
So someone who, I like reviews with gravitas. It's just something. It matters, especially to booksellers, to media people. Anybody can write a review on Amazon, and that's great. If you got 2,000-3,000 reviews on Amazon, the metrics are going to be in your favor every time someone searches for a book in your genre or close to that.
Right.
But really, with what I want is I want to get my book into independent bookstores. That's a priority for me because then I get really great photos of booksellers, smiling booksellers, giving a thumbs up to my title, holding my book, which I share on social media like crazy. And I even have a bunch of pics featuring bookstore cats that I'll be happy to share with you. I'll email some of these to you if you want to put them in because then nothing gets engagement on social media like a bookstore cat. A cat sitting next to your book. I mean, it's just
The
it's
two go
gold.
together. Cats,
Yeah.
coffee, books. It's just like we'll triple up. These three things are just made for each other, right? Yeah.
Trifecta. Absolutely, man. Yeah.
So let me ask you, do you go for basically one really good, profound review, or like is it kind of like as many as you can get?
Yeah, but the one really makes it really helps. So I've also
Right.
been reviewed by Taliesin Meets the Vampires, a single genre blogger who has read everybody who came before me. And these single genre bloggers have been around for a while. Their reviews also have a lot of heft and meaning when you're
Right.
sharing that review. Some of these folks are not as skilled on social media, perhaps, or
Right.
present on social media, perhaps. So you're going to have to do the sharing of that review, but that's fine. I'm game to share any good review of my book. I will share it with anybody across the universe.
Right. Like get their quote and then you worry about the marketing their quote, but get
Yes.
their language with their name on it.
Mhm.
So one thing I do want to mention, and this is a marketing thing that I've had on my mind forever. Like sometimes your best salespeople people are your own happy customers. So the idea of having these bookstores taking pictures with your book, all of that is an endorsement that you can market the heck out of, right?
Absolutely. And it all in marketing 101 is find somebody else to talk about your product, right? I mean,
Right.
who loves your product. But booksellers have in a unique position because they're authorities. Readers
Right.
look to them for recommendations. So if you're sharing, a photo of your book in the hands of a smiling bookseller, that means something. That is a powerful photo to share on social media. So I've gotten my book into Fiona's Guardians into dozens of independent bookstores.
Right.
It took thousands of emails to do it, but in the U.S., U.K., Canada, I'm in several dozen, and I got the photos to prove it, and I share
Right.
those regularly over and over again, and it's another important thing to think about because if you're just sharing the cover art of your book over and over again, or the Amazon link, repeatedly, the people will get bored, and the AI bots, algorithms, whatever, will start suppressing your post because it's boring now. So you
Right.
have to find new ways to share your information about you and your book on social media. So getting as many photos as possible will help.
Unique photos holding the book. Hey, so I'm
Mhm.
a little bit under the weather. I'm going to grab a Kleenex, but
Yep.
I do want to ask you, and I'll let you kind of answer this question when I step out.
Mhm.
Have you, in terms of language or like how you approach these bookstores with an email, like have you found kind of a rhythm or like, okay, these emails about this length, tend to get more of a reply? Like any insights on what to say and how to pitch them?
Yeah, I try to include a punchy sort of line right at the beginning of the email. Just saying, this is what my book is about, and this is why I think your customers will be interested in it. I also include that all important link to that review. And I put that up pretty quickly in the email, and then I share. Of course, they're gonna want to know the ISBN number, etc., so they can search for it easily. But yeah, get that really good review, and that will do the work for you, really.
I love that. And then do you kind of keep it on the short end? Because I imagine they get a lot of solicitations, and it's like if you give them this big meaty email, they're like, oh, again, I don't
Right.
have time for this.
Keep it short and punchy, you know.
Okay.
And any writer should be able to do that. Certainly an experienced writer, So
Yeah.
yes, keep it short, keep it punchy, get to the point, and include that review.
I love that. A lot of us struggle with the back of the book. So like sometimes like actually chopping down the merits of a book to a few lines, but it's a skill, right? And it's probably, from from your journalism days, that's probably comes a little bit more naturally, but it's something that a lot of authors need to really work on. And same for the elevator pitch, for the advertisements, like you need the same, what are the merits of your book and can we get it down to 2, 3 lines compelling,
Exactly. And if you have a beta reader or two, they might be able to offer suggestions on that because they've read your book and they know about it. And sometimes having their eyes, okay, their opinion about your book can really help. They can. So I would approach your beta readers if you've got them for a little bit of help with writing the back cover copy, and that
Yeah.
that. Yes, solicit as much help as you can.
Well,
Actually,
honestly, a team of people makes a difference, right? Your ARC readers, beta readers, editors, cover
Mhm.
designers, even a couple author friends to run like, an A and B copy, right? If you're doing an email campaign, a lot of these programs be like, do an A and B version, and you kind of figure out what works and, test out two back a book language or, two different ads and be like, okay, which one of these? But yeah, I mean, utilize the people you've got, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
so one thing that really struck me about, the DIY book promo. So like right now, Amazon is making a lot of readers angry. They changed
Mm.
something about Kindle Unlimited, and I think it has to do with the ability to download the book versus just you kind of renting it the way you rent a movie from Amazon. Then no one owns anything anymore. We all just have some digital thing we borrow. Um, so I think authors right now more than ever are feeling even shakier than before about like, okay, should my entire fate as a writer be in Amazon's hands? And you came in with a presentation that's like, there are other avenues.
Yeah,
And I was like,
plenty of
oh, this opened up a whole wide world. So do you even, I mean, your book is obviously on Amazon because, all books are on Amazon, right? But your
them.
main focus is like, okay, I'm going to go directly to the independent bookstores and form a relationship.
These kind of relationships are really important because you're going to need them the next time when your next book comes out. So, and if they like your first book and it's selling okay, they will be interested in your next book as well. It's a relationship where we help each other. Independent authors, independent booksellers, they need to team up. And if all of your eggs are in the Amazon basket, I kind of worry for authors who are in that situation because what you just mentioned earlier about readers no longer being able to own the books that they've downloaded,
Right.
that's really troublesome. And then, of course, what can you do? Are you going to sue Amazon? I mean,
Right. Right. A
it's
company. Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah.
So I think authors really do need to think about not life beyond Amazon. Amazon will always be there and it will always have a purpose. But I think the alternate world of independent booksellers and which includes alternate online shopping paths, such as bookshop.org, a great resource for readers who don't want to support Amazon. You can support independent booksellers by shopping online at bookshop.org, find the books that you want, and then you get to name the bookstore that gets the profits. It's
Interesting.
pretty cool. Oh yeah, it's
So,
absolutely cool.
so
So
who ships? Okay. Yeah.
Lindsay Schultz, who owns the Spine Bookshop in Smyrna, Tennessee,
Yeah.
she's on bookshop.org. Most of the independent booksellers out there, especially the smaller ones, are on bookshop.org.
Interesting. So would she then ship the book from the spine? Like if you select her or the book comes from elsewhere and then the profits go to her.
I believe the book comes from like a central location, and then the profits go to the Spine Bookshop or any other bookshop that we're talking about. Yeah,
So I'm going to include these links in the description too, because that's also a new one for me. Like you had mentioned, there is, let's say, an online catalog of every independent bookstore in the US and Canada. I did
yeah,
not know that that existed. And that's
yeah.
something that's publicly available.
It is. It's called newpages.com.
Okay.
And they also have lists of contests and other resources, but their list of independent booksellers in the US, Canada, and US territories is comprehensive, constantly being updated. And I have pitched every bookseller on that list. I think it's like 1,200 or more. And that's just in the US. I've pitched every one of them several times.
Oh,
And I only need to hear back from a few dozen, and that's fine because I get a few dozen photographs that I can share then.
right. And you can keep your own momentum going and you can use those photos to, pitch the same bookstores that said no, pitch them a second time, or
Mhm.
build on the momentum you have. So we got about 2 minutes left. There's a few things that are inherent in what you're saying. One of them is like, and we talked about this at the event at over the weekend when we met. You clearly stand behind your book, and you're willing to advocate for your book in a very strong way. That like readers who love vampires and these things, authors who are trying to sell books, they will benefit from having a relationship with my books, right?
Right. Mhm.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of authors miss, like, the self-advocating that like, look, this work matters, it's meaningful. It's actually good for readers if they get
Absolutely.
involved with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if your beta readers are telling you have a really good book, if you have the first several reviews of your book are really good, your book now deserves the biggest promotional push that you can give it. Give as many hours every day to promoting your book, and that includes writing bookstores, writing to book festivals, writing to media outlets, to get interviews, that kind of thing. Push, 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 because your reviewers are telling you that this book is worth your time spent promoting it.
Yeah, like it's not just in your head that this book is good. Like, no, you
Mhm.
got something here, and now treat it like a business. Cultivate that inner entrepreneur, not just the artist. Find that entrepreneur. You are a small business owner now. Get out
Mhm.
there and market.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Hey, we're gonna get kicked out any second. This was a lot of fun. It was also a very fast 40 minutes. Um, you standing offer, you're welcome back on here anytime, especially when your next one's about to come out. Let's get on here and I will do everything I can, do my part to talk about the sequel here.
Well, thank you so much, Greg. I really appreciate you, and well, I can't wait to share this interview.
I love it. Thank you, Dan. It was good,
All
good to see you again.
right, take care.
All right, we'll talk
All right,
soon. All
all
right,
right, bye
bye.
bye.